Bad boys, what you gonna do when they come for you? Well, sometimes they aren't the police. Plenty of criminals have faced karmic justice, whether from their victims, a vengeful family member, a judge with a wicked sense of humor, or even the forces of nature itself. But they all have one thing in common: they really deserved it. Find out more about those unfortunate crooks on this episode of The Infographic Show. 25 times criminals got what they deserved. Don't judge me. First, let's talk about some criminals who made it in front of a judge, and the judge had a unique idea for how they should face justice. One Ohio judge, Michael Cicconetti, has been dealing out unusual punishments for years, often to first-time young offenders. One example is an 18-year-old man who knocked over a porta-potty in a park. The judge decided, you smelt it, you dealt it, and sentenced the potty perp to do community service at a local street fair, scooping the manure for farm animals on display. And that's not the only time someone wound up literally working off their sentence. Judge Cicconetti also had an unusual idea for how to deal with a young woman who stiffed a cab driver. She took a 30-mile ride and then jumped out without paying. When she wound up in front of the judge for theft, he gave her a choice between 30 days in jail or taking the hike she would have without the cab she stiffed. While a 30-mile hike might sound like torture to the average couch potato, it's only around 20% longer than a marathon, so at least the judge knew it was physically possible. But the next judge was a little blunter when it came to sentencing. When Sheena Hardwin, a 32-year-old from Cleveland, was tired of waiting for a school bus to pass, she did something very stupid. She drove her car on the sidewalk to get around the bus. Judge Pinky Carr was not amused and ordered Hardwin to stand on a street corner for 2 days during rush hour traffic. She had to hold a sign that said, "Only an idiot would drive on the sidewalk to avoid a school bus." Hardwin's license was also suspended for 30 days, but we're betting the humiliation lasts a lot longer. And not even the kids are immune from creative punishments from judges. In 2012, juvenile court judge Scott Johansson presided over a disturbing case. Two 13-year-old girls had cut a 3-year-old girl's hair, seemingly unprovoked. He was prepared to sentence the girls to 30 days in juvenile hall and 276 hours of community service. But then he had a creative twist. He would reduce their community service time if they agreed to cut their hair as short as their victims. This led to a bizarre spectacle of one girl's mother cutting off her daughter's ponytail in the courtroom, with the victim's mother heckling her to cut it shorter. The judge ultimately had a complaint filed against him, and animal lovers will likely approve of this next sentence. Let's head back to Judge Cicconetti's courtroom. The Ohio judge was less than pleased to see Michelle M. Murray in his courtroom after she had abandoned 35 kittens in a park, leaving several to die or fall gravely ill from exposure. Judge Cicconetti gave her two choices: 90 days in jail or 14 days in the big house, followed by house arrest and a series of fines and donations. The second option came with the added condition, spending a night alone in the woods, enduring the same harsh conditions she left the kittens to suffer. She chose this hard-boiled camping option, but due to the cold weather, the no-nonsense judge did allow her to build a fire. Of course, many criminals get their karma long before they encounter a judge. When robberies go wrong. Theft is one of the most common crimes, and the one the criminal gets away with the most often. After all, most stores have insurance and they don't want the security guard to give chase and open them to liability. Many street robbers just get away without a trace in the heat of the moment, but some aren't so lucky. In Bogota, Colombia, a man saw a woman playing with her phone at a bus stop and quickly snatched it out of her hands. She struggled with him, but he wrestled it away from her and darted into the street. But he didn't look both ways. The bus plowed into the stop and directly into the unlucky thief. Fortunately, some good fate was smiling on everyone that day. The bus wasn't moving too fast. The man was knocked back onto the sidewalk and he dropped the phone, allowing the woman to recover it. The man was promptly taken to a nearby hospital for treatment with minor injuries. While there's no information on if he was formally charged, it is likely the woman contacted the police and they knew exactly where to find him. And sometimes it's just a case of bad timing. Convenience stores are one of the most common spots to get robbed. They're open at all hours, usually sparsely staffed at night, and the low-paid clerks aren't likely to risk getting shot over the contents of their register. That's exactly what two California teenagers thought in 2018. As they walked toward a 7-Eleven, they passed a car in the lot before pulling their hoods over their heads, and they prepared to make their move. But someone else was. The car outside contained an armed security guard who was watching their every move. Cameras caught the entire thing as it unfolded, including the two dim-witted crooks' identities. He entered the store, he shot both teenagers in the arm while they were pointing their guns, and as they fell to the floor, they protested that the guns were fake. In a line right out of an action movie, the guard responded, "Oh, well, mine's real," before calling an ambulance. The teens were taken to a hospital, where they no doubt found their good arms handcuffed to the bed. When committing a crime, you really should know your surroundings. It was 2017 and Chicago man Terrion Pouncey was ready to go out a-robbing. Maybe he was just hungry that day, but after robbing several shops in the area, he set his sights on an easy target, a local hot dog vendor, likely carrying plenty of cash. He pounced on the wiener slinger and he held a gun to the back of his head. But he didn't notice that the man was holding one of the tools of the trade of selling hot dogs, a whole bucket of hot, molten grease. In the chaos of the robbery, the bucket tipped over, sending scalding grease splashing everywhere and scattering the cash. Panicked, Pouncey scrambled to grab up the saturated bills, stuffing them into his hands. In his rush, he tucked his gun into his waistband, and that's when things went from bad to worse. As he made his great escape, he accidentally discharged his weapon, shooting himself right in the crotch. His bad luck didn't end there. While recovering in the hospital, he was promptly charged with armed robbery. And sometimes crooks just never know when to quit. Crazy karma. Let's face it, road rage is a major problem. Drivers get furious at being cut off in traffic, and they scream obscenities or go so far as to ram other vehicles. But one Louisville man took things much further, all over a minor issue. Furious at the sight of a PT Cruiser parked on the neighborhood street, he decided to take matters into his own hands. He smashed the car's windows, fashioned a homemade Molotov cocktail, and hurled the flaming bottle inside, and set himself and his own car on fire in the process. But this Louisville man may have had Florida roots, because his response was to jump back into his car and drive away while on fire. He hit several other cars before crashing into a house. He was arrested, taken to a nearby hospital for burn injuries, and was facing serious charges. But somehow, they didn't pay enough attention. He snuck out of the hospital while recovering, disappearing into the nearby area, and was never seen again. He may have escaped the criminal justice system, but escaping the hospital with fresh burns may not have worked out well for him. And this next road rager just picked the wrong target. There's nothing more frustrating than slow-moving traffic. And in 2018, this made one man's blood boil. Traffic was backed up at a yield sign with a white SUV at the front of the pack. They just had to wait for the traffic to let up so they could merge. But the owner of a black car started aggressively honking at the cars to move, and then he took matters into his own hands. Tired of waiting, he veered onto the shoulder, dangerously weaving around the other cars in line, and then cut off the white SUV as he zoomed onto the highway. And suddenly, the white SUV took off too because it wasn't just any car, it was an undercover police officer. Within seconds, the lights and the sirens flashed and the chase was on. The impatient driver had just made a very bad decision, one that likely ended with a hefty ticket or even a criminal charge for reckless driving. It was all caught on a commuter's dash cam. The man recording it had a key piece of evidence as well as a great story to tell after lunch. And sometimes nature gets in on the act. Mother Nature claps back. Jennifer Ann Kaufman was a Florida woman and had lived up to her reputation when she stole a car in a rural area. She wasn't exactly having her best day. After a clumsy getaway attempt, she lost control and crashed straight into a pasture. With cops in pursuit, she bolted into the grassy enclosure of a nearby farm, hoping to escape, only to realize too late that it had its own unexpected security system. Because it was full of cows, and they did not like intruders. They didn't recognize this strange Florida woman on their turf, and they did the only thing that made sense. They chased her. The entire thing was caught on security footage, and what followed was no doubt the funniest night of crime fighting in those police officers' careers. She scrambled her way through the hills of the pasture with the cows in hot pursuit. They eventually pinned her to a fence where she was promptly arrested by some sheriff's deputies. The cows played such a key role in corralling the dastardly car thief that they even got a special citation from the sheriff's office when they recapped the case, praising them for going above and beyond in the line of Mooty. And it's not just the animal kingdom that can deliver all natural karma. It was a rainy day in England, when is it not? In March 2018, when a pair of low-down crooks decided to rob a travel agency. We're not sure that this was the best choice of target in the modern day, but they managed to get away with some cash that they then stuffed into their pants. They stepped outside ready to make their getaway, only to be met with an unexpected problem. The wind was howling that day, and they were about to regret their choice of how to transport their stolen cash. A gust of wind sent bills flying in every direction. One of them frantically tried to grab at the swirling money, but it was already too late. The other robber, meanwhile, decided to chase after the runaway cash, right back into the scene of the crime. It doesn't seem like they were arrested on the spot, but they eventually left without any money. No doubt the footage of them was spread far and wide as the police searched for England's most notoriously incompetent robbers. This next criminal is the definition of look before you leap. In the South African city of Bloemfontein, street crime can be a serious problem, and in 2005, it found a couple out on a date. They were held at knife point by a crook, and he tried to get some money before he attracted the attention of the security guards. As they gave chase, he took off like a rocket through the city until he found a fence in the middle of the darkness. Assuming this would be a good place to hide, he climbed it and disappeared from the line of sight of the police officers. Had he gotten away with it? Well, he wouldn't be seeing the inside of a courtroom anytime soon. It turned out that he was in the Bloemfontein Zoo, and he had just climbed into the tiger's den. Sure enough, the territorial big cats quickly attacked, and the thief's corpse was found in the den the next morning. Shockingly, this wasn't the only time a thief tried to escape in the Bloemfontein Zoo. In 1997, a criminal jumped into the gorilla enclosure and wound up pinned against the wall by the mighty primate, who let him live despite the crook shooting at him. R.I.P. Hammurabi, you would have made a great police officer. And few animals deliver karma quite like these big cats. In rural Ethiopia, some shady criminals came up with a sinister plan to get some money. They would kidnap a 12-year-old girl and hold her for ransom. They planned to transport her into the wilderness where they could hide her easily. But they didn't account for the fact that there was a reason that people don't wander into the wilderness. It was full of dangerous wildlife, including lions. And it wasn't long before the kidnappers encountered a pride of hungry beasts, and this wasn't a Disney movie. But there was a surprising twist to the story. The criminals proceeded to abandon the girl to the lions and run off in a panic. And this could have easily turned into a horror story, but instead the girl was found hanging out with the lions without a mark on her. Lions don't regularly hunt humans, and they didn't seem to have any intention of harming her. But as for the criminals, they were tracked down and arrested, but only 4 of the original 7 were ever found. This next crime was solved by the most iconic of mistakes, the butt dial. When justice calls. Everyone knows that when a fight breaks out at a Waffle House, you get out of the way. This isn't a slap fight at IHOP. The odds are guns will be drawn and waffles will be thrown. That was definitely the case in 2013 in, you guessed it, Florida. Scott Simon and Nicholas Walker got into a nasty argument in the parking lot of the popular discount restaurant, and Simon and his friends followed Walker in the parking lot. And this being Waffle House in Florida, you know things escalated. Simon had ordered his friends to shoot Walker, and that's exactly what they did, killing the fellow Waffle House patron. The authorities didn't have to investigate this murder for long because Simon had accidentally butt-dialed 911, broadcasting the murder plot to everyone listening. The prosecutors took that, showing that it had been a premeditated killing and not self-defense. The trio of criminals were found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. But no one screwed themselves over like this next man. Famous, almost last words. James Washington was a career criminal, already serving time for other offenses in 1995. But authorities suspected he hadn't answered for all of his crimes, at least not yet. He was a key suspect in the brutal stabbing and beating murder of Joyce Goodner. But the case went cold with no hard evidence. In 2009, while in prison, he suddenly took ill with a heart ailment, and as he clutched his chest in a hospital bed, he called a prison guard over and made what he thought was a deathbed confession that he had, in fact, killed Goodner. There was just one problem: he didn't die. It's not clear if he just got lucky or if his health scare was a false alarm, but Washington soon recovered, and it was then that he had realized he had made an unprompted confession of murder to a prison official. Sure enough, it was soon reported to the detectives on the case, and with no statute of limitations on the murder, he was soon charged. But defense attorneys tried to claim it was all an hallucination brought on by the pain he was in. But it was enough evidence to get a conviction and a mandatory life sentence for the cold-blooded murderer. This next criminal was only doing a minor crime, but he got some smelly justice. Full tank, full stank. Gas prices are high, and everyone is scrimping and saving, and then there are those who just decide to cut some ethical corners. Siphoning gas is a crime, not just because it's theft, but because it can leave a car stranded in the middle of nowhere. But that didn't stop a gang of Australian thieves when they spotted a tour bus at the side of the road. These buses typically have large gas tanks, making them appealing targets, but they also have something else: a bathroom. And these crooks were about to make a very unpleasant mistake. The most common technique for siphoning gas involves sucking the end of the hose. So when one of those unfortunate crooks tapped into it, he didn't realize he had tapped into the septic tank instead and got a mouthful of sewage. This caused a commotion. The bus owners noticed and they called the police, but the thief didn't wind up being charged with any crimes. He hadn't technically stolen any gas, and the loss of some sewage wasn't an issue. We're guessing everyone involved assumed he was done with the gas siphoning business. You know what no one ever said? That drunk makes good life choices. Buzzed and busted. Many of the crimes on this list are cold-blooded and premeditated, but drunk driving is the opposite. It's usually a selfish, impulsive decision made by a drunk person, so it's no surprise they often make more bad decisions. That was the case in 2018 in Fairfax, Virginia, when a man was weaving down the road. The officers gave chase and they put on their lights and sirens. Rather than stopping his car and facing the music, he panicked, tried to escape, and slowed his car down at the side of the road. And that is when he got out of the car before putting it into park. It's not clear if he thought the car was the one under arrest, not him, but he tried to run in front of the car without stopping it. He probably became the only person in history to run themselves over while drunk. The car wasn't moving fast, so he only knocked himself over and he made himself easier to arrest. With the entire thing captured on police dashcam, it was an easy arrest to make, as well as some very funny footage. And as it was his third arrest for drunk driving, the odds are he had a long time to think over his life decisions. If there is one thing many thieves have discovered, it's don't mess with the big guys. Even karma comes wholesale. Several major chains are known for having a tough hand on theft. Walmart security is known for being aggressive. Meanwhile, Target often lets repeat thieves get away with it until they've stolen enough to slap them with a felony charge. But Costco may have outdone them all in 2018 in Seattle. They loaded up a cart, slipped out the back door, and thought they had pulled off the perfect heist. There was just one problem. One of them had hit the store before, and the security guard never forgot a face. He let the cops know what to expect, which meant that the thieves were in for an unpleasant surprise. The man and his younger female accomplice went to meet with their getaway driver, and they had really gone all in this time. They were trying to steal over $2,000 in electronics and appliances as they headed for the exit, only to be met with a large group of police officers waiting for them. Not only were they surrounded by officers, but the entire thing had been captured on camera. And given the massive haul they had, they were almost definitely facing felony charges. This next event was a melee that definitely didn't end like the crooks were hoping. Side of justice, extra hot. Denny's isn't quite a Waffle House, but it's still known for quite a bit of chaos at night. That was definitely the case in Hawthorne, California in 2017. A group of 4 people had just finished their melts and slammers when they were getting into their car, and a thief ran up to them pointing a gun and demanding money. But these victims weren't going down without a fight. One woman ran back into the restaurant to call the police, while the driver got into the car and hit the gas. The thief decided to cut his losses and head to his getaway car. But his accomplice had other ideas. The getaway car took off without the armed thief, and that left him at the mercy of his would-be victims. The victims hit the gas pedal, plowing into the thief, who was still holding the gun. Somehow, the impact of being hit caused the gun to go off, shooting the robber in the head. Miraculously, he wasn't killed. Maybe the Grim Reaper just found the whole thing funny and wanted to see how it played out. So the unfortunate thief was taken to the hospital, placed under arrest, and everything went back to business as usual at Denny's. Sometimes criminals don't have a master plan. They're just dumb. Too dumb to stop, too hot to handle. Home improvements are never fun, and they often result in some unpleasant extra details like a porta potty on your front lawn. This might be because of work being done in the bathroom or simply for the workers, but they are a hassle, and they can also attract idiots. That was the case in Levittown, New York, when a petty criminal came across one of those smelly devices and decided the best thing to do was set it on fire. He lit the flame, he stood there, and he admired his handiwork. But he didn't notice one major detail. He had actually lit his own pants on fire. As soon as he stepped out of the portable bathroom he had just turned into an inferno, he realized what was wrong. He proceeded to take off in a panic. The police soon arrived and put out the flame before serious damage could be done to the home, but the arsonist got away without a trace. Although, if he didn't put out his pants quickly, odds are he was left with some more lasting reminders of his ill-advised scheme. Arsonist, pants on fire. That doesn't quite have the same ring to it, but it's accurate. And of course, sometimes instant karma is harsh and swift. Celebrating with a bang. It was 2010 on New Year's Eve, and Moscow's Red Square was packed with revelers looking to have a good time. But not everyone was there for merriment. One woman and her 2 accomplices were planning a bombing in the crowded square. The explosion would be triggered by her partner sending a text message to her cell phone at midnight that would detonate the bomb attached to her. It was perfectly timed to cause maximum casualties and chaos, only days after the terror group had struck an airport, killing 35 people. But she didn't count on one thing: spam texts. A few hours before midnight, while she was still far away from the square planning her attack, she got a text message. It was from her cell phone carrier, sending a generic New Year's greeting. The bombs that she had strapped to her went off immediately, with her accomplices barely escaping the blast that killed her. However, the scene attracted a lot of attention, and the 2 surviving terrorists were quickly picked up by the authorities, and the Russian New Year's celebration went off without a hitch. And sometimes karma comes in the form of those who knew the victim best. No one messes with Mom. It was one of the most infamous killings in German history, in more ways than one. In 1981 in West Germany, Anna Bachmeier went missing and was soon found dead. The killing was traced to Klaus Grabowski, a man with an extended criminal history, and the evidence was overwhelmingly against him. He was going to go on trial and likely be sentenced to life in prison after what would be likely a short trial. But it turned out to be shorter than anyone expected. On the 3rd day of the trial, Anna's mother Marianne smuggled a gun into the courtroom and quickly put 6 bullets into Grabowski's chest. He was killed almost immediately and she quickly surrendered, to which many people said, "You go, Mom." Alas, the law doesn't work that way and she was arrested. Although charges were downgraded to manslaughter, she was initially sentenced to 6 years in prison, but only served 3 and never expressed any remorse for her act of vigilante justice. But this next criminal didn't even get to trial. Family matters. In 2013, Louisiana was gripped by an eerie mystery. A 29-year-old woman named Bethany Arsenault went missing one night, and a manhunt commenced. The chief suspect was Scott Thomas, the father of Bethany's child, who had previously been served with restraining orders against contacting her. His car was found abandoned, but it wasn't considered enough evidence for an arrest. That didn't stop Bethany's cousin, though. He was convinced Thomas was responsible and he was going to find her, and that is exactly what he did. While scouting Thomas's house, he saw what looked like a man stabbing a woman. Thinking it was Arsenault being assaulted, he kicked open the door and he started firing into the darkened house. Fortunately, his aim was on point because not long after that, the police arrived and they found Thomas's body inside. The sheriff's department ultimately determined that the cousin was justified and invoked a law that allows deadly force to prevent serious bodily harm or death, and the cousins were free to head home together. But sometimes a criminal's worst enemy is himself. Thief gets charged, literally. It was 2022 and a mugger saw an opportunity. A captive audience aboard the number 2 train early in the morning. Subways had become a favorite hunting ground for criminals, and this guy wasn't working alone. He was part of a group of 4 young men robbing passengers when someone managed to call the cops. The police arrived and quickly gave chase. They managed to nab 3 of the suspects, but the 4th was determined to escape. And that's when he made a fatal mistake. He started jumping between train cars. As the young crook tried to escape the cops, he fell from one of the cars, became trapped under the train, and tried to get free, only to grab the 3rd rail. Instant electrocution. He died at the scene, and the other criminals faced criminal charges, including gun charges for 2 of them. And this led many regular subway users to ask, "Hey, can we maybe do something about the robberies on the train? This isn't the Wild West." Want to know more about some people who pushed their luck way too far? Check out Embarrassingly Stupid Ways People Died, Darwin Award Winners number 3, or watch Insanely Lucky People Who Had Unlucky Deaths for cases where karma went in surprising directions.